Hello. Hi. Hello, everybody. Hi, 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 hi. Hang on. I'm just um I'm doing something. I'm I'm slightly distracted at the moment. I okay. I'm gonna stop being distracted now. I'm gonna get out of this game. Woo! Oh, okay. Oh my. I wasn't expecting to experience that today. Okay, give me a second. Let me just put my earphone away. Whew. Damn. Uh. I won't comment. I'm not gonna comment on it, but it's eye candy. Anyways, so guys, today we're gonna be doing some wonderful things called Storytime, right? Storytime, where I just read what I have on my shelf and Genshin archive books if I have collected any. So, I'm gonna open up Genshin because I forgot to do that. Excuse me. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to have um we're gonna stay on the screen and I'm going to just read stuff and you guys won't have to watch me fiddle with everything. Let me just log into the correct account. Okay, so while I'm getting this prepped up and getting the book out and ready, if I remember if we had stopped at a specific book or not, while I'm doing that, why don't you guys go get your blankets, your hot cocoa, your tea, your coffee, maybe some snacks to go with it. But yeah, go do that. I'm gonna turn off my BGM and I will start reading soon. Wouldn't Dad be proud? I'm doing story time. Okay, so turn off my BGM. I have to remember to turn that back on at some point. Okay. What the fuck? I wish you guys could see that. I log into Genshin and Zhongli has his ult ready and it suddenly had a question mark on it. Oh dear. I'm gonna be yawning a lot because I did have quite an exhausting day today, albeit most of it was spent playing Valorant. But basically I've had a really annoyingly tiring day. Having to handle some sexist people and not great games, unfortunately. And also I had my interview with the university today, so hopefully that goes well. I'll find out the results probably tomorrow. If not, then Sunday. Hopefully it went well. Okay, so I'm gonna be doing a lot of yawning, so if I do pause at any point, just assume that I'm either scrolling down or I'm just, yawning. But yeah, if you guys want to go grab your tea or blankets, sit yourself down comfortably, we'll get some story times in. Once we finish all the books I have here in Genshin, I will be grabbing a book from my shelf. I'll tell you guys the title, who it's by, etc., etc., and then I'll start reading it. It'll probably be a lot easier since I'll have bookmarks on them. But anyways, so today we will be starting off with Ballads of the Squire. The Squire? Yeah. So Ballads of the Squire. There's only 2 volumes in this one, and it doesn't look very long. So yeah, let's read this one out. Down every street in Mondstadt have I strolled. The air was filled with the stench of misery and the buzz of revelry. I saw the most arrogant of aristocrats, and I saw the most pitiful of the impoverished. At night these streets are like a spider's web. Some here to feast, others their eternal prey. I hear the jangling in the night, and know it is the chains that fetter the souls of the oppressed. I patrol the streets of Mondstadt at night time, where my peers and superiors would once declare, "We are the starlit knights. Lift thy heads and bear witness. For we, who raise our flag in the splendor of starlight, are the true protectors of Mondstadt." But not once have I lifted my head to the stars, or gazed at our flag. For I cannot shift my focus from the filthy street corners. Destitute, destitute, hang on. I don't know what this word is. Google, help me. Also, assume that if I'm like, oh, I was correct. Assume that if there's another long pause and I'm like looking over here, I'm probably just looking up words. Destitute pebblers weep in silence. Aging soldiers grimace in pain. In the deathly stillness of night, a young girl rejected by the aristocracy pleads for Barbados's mercy. The sighing of mournful winds rattle the cathedral gate, carrying with them the grief of the oppressed. They assault splendid. The fuck was that? Palatial? Carrying with them the grief of the oppressed, they assault splendid palatial walls, each mother's call, each infant's cry, enough to dent the hardness of shields, enough to shatter the sharpness of swords. Sounds of sorrow send shivers down my spine. But in the palace and in the castle, though the winds blow, though the wind blows the same over holy ground, they are but the sighs of ants to the ears of man. Volume 2. One day, at the crack of dawn, a dancer whose sword was her song set foot in Mondstadt. Though clad with chains, with cuffed hands and fettered feet, In her silence lay a song. It was the song of freedom, a song of a brighter dawn beyond the walls, a joyous ballad sung without reservation by the people unrestrained. By a people unrestrained. She was the dawn light of the wanderous troop. But she spelled eternal midnight for the aristocracy. I once asked her, "Why do you come to overthrow the aristocrats? Did you not know that they are the first among us? Wherefore do you place their lives on a pedestal?" came her voice like a fresh breeze. "If you claim to know the wind as your companion, then did you not once know freedom too?" To her lonesome listeners she told a tale of our rulers' better ancestors who held divine power, a tale of angels, gods, and vile dragons, a tale of the deities and peoples of all the land. Each myth and legend she turned into songs, and the wind carried the song to all corners of the land. In the aristocrat's arena, her sword sang once more, her final masterpiece, but it stopped short of perfection. A nameless knight retrieved her sword from the blood-soaked battlefield and buried it where the gentle winds meet in communion. And that is the Ballads of the Squire. Next up is Heart of Clear Springs. I'm sorry for some of the pauses and the yawning. I really do apologize. Hopefully we could get through this the next 3 hours, no problem. Let's just take another stretch. My throat made a funny noise anyways. Okay, so this is Heart of Clear Springs. This one has 4 volumes in it and seems quite lengthy. So we might have a good one with this one. Volume 1. Under the cascading moonlight, a tearful boy made his wish at the spring. A fairy from afar, who had taken up residence in the unoccupied spring, listened in silence to his wordless wish. Spring fairies know nothing of distant memories or deep dreams. They are born of water's essence. They are born of water's essence, faceless descendants of the angels. Thus, when the curious fairy emerged from the water and heard the cry of the boy's heart, she became interested in this life, younger and more fragile than her own. The silent fairy reached out her formless fingers, cold as the midnight dew and soft as fortune forgone, and gently cherished the boy's forehead and cheeks. Startled by this stranger's touch, the young boy lifted his head and met the fairy's gaze. "Can you make my wish come true?" the boy asked. The fairy of the spring was surprised and confused by this presumptuous question. But she could not speak, and so simply nodded her head. Satisfied, the boy left. Give me a second, guys. I need a reading music to get me in the mood. Okay. He did not know that the spring fairy was alone, without friends or family, and that she had lost a great deal of her wisdom. Only when the spring water flowed from cracks in the stone into her pool, And when she gazed upon the fractured image of the moon in the rippling water, did she slowly regain the ability to think and to mimic fragments of speech. Like a curious child, the fairy observed the world around her in innocence and wonder, in love and love. Not in love, goddamn. She rejoiced with the fox and squirrel who stole berries and grieved at the dark clouds that covered the horizon. And for that young boy, a feeling complex yet immature welled forth from within her heart. All alone in this forest, she had neither the power nor wisdom with which to grant his wish. But she could share it, and she drew life from sharing his burdens. Volume 2. As his gaze at the fractured image of the moon carried by the water's ripples, the boy poured his heart out to the spring. From within his words, she learned much of him, and from her silence, he strengthened his belief in himself. Dimly, the spring fairy understood that there was good in the world beyond moonlight, and fruits and more to darkness than mere clouds. The boy spoke of her to forests and trees, cities and walls, and shared with her his joys, his sorrows, and his fears. Hello, Ozzy. Welcome to the stream. Mwah. Thank you for the redeem. Jacket toggled. Okay. Oh, Jesus, I forgot. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my. You asshole! I'm about to take your mod powers away. Sure. Hi. We're just reading some Genshin archived books, and if we finish these, there's only a few left, and I don't know how long each of them are, but if we finish these, I'll be grabbing a book from my shelf and reading from that. So grab a coffee, grab a blankie, grab something to help you relax. I'll be yawning a few times, so excuse me, I had a long day. As she listens to him, she became enamored of this imperfect world into which she had been born. Oh, thanks for the head pats. When the boy grew frustrated at his powerlessness, the spring fairy would gently and quietly wipe away his tears. From from then, she grew to understand the world outside the spring a little more. Those tears flowed into the water, and the fairy purified them, turning them into a sweet nectar that brought him sweet dreams. The boy forgot the pain of his waking hours and met the silent fairy by her spring in his sleep. Every time that happened, the fairy too would smile, asleep in the pool drenched in moonlight. The fresh dew nourished the boy's dreams, and the boy's dreams rejuvenated the lonely fairy's soul. In those dreams, the spring fairy told the boy tales of the faraway realm of Hydro. She spoke of her sapphire blue homeland. She sang of the homesickness of exile, and she sighed for separation and belonging. In these dreams, the boy became the one who silently listened, who wept for her troubles, and who rejoiced in her happiness. Over time, the spring fairy gains the power of speech from the boy's memories and dreams. Over time, they became friends who shared all. Volume 3. When the wind ceased to blow, the moon's fractured reflection in the pool was made whole, and the boy heard the fairy's voice for the first time. Fairies are tender, sensitive beings beyond the ken of humans, and the boy was deeply taken by her gentle, elegiac, ele, ele, ed, this word, elegiac. Fairies are tender, sensitive beings beyond the kin of humans, and the boy was deeply taken by her gentle elegiac. I already forgot how to pronounce it. Elegiac. Taken by her gentle elegiac voice. But fairies, being tender and sensitive beyond human ken, through his eyes she saw his naked yearning and the promise that was about to leave his lips. And suddenly the fairy was afraid. Mortal lives are strong but fleeting, and the boy must grow and grow old. Once youth and innocence had faded, how would he treat his elemental descendants? In the twilight of his life, would he blame himself for throwing his life away for a childish promise? The spring fairy was pure and kind, but she did not understand human love. She had never seen the miracle of humanity and had merely sat idly through millennia of change. And so she greatly feared parting. What humans see as the miracle of devotion, elemental fairies can only perceive as fleeting pleasure. And even the power of fairies cannot reverse the aging of a loved one. The tender fairy could not bear to see that unavoidable day come, and with a kiss she stopped the boy from uttering the words. But the boy, in his innocence, mistook her rejection as her approval of his promise. For that moment the fairy vowed that she would someday bear to leave him, and the boy had vowed that he would remain by her spring forever. Volume 4. By and by the young boy grew up and made new friends and had new experiences. And the spring fairy, as she had in his youth, sang him her quiet elegies, each one, till the day came at last when she left and gazed no more upon the boy. Never again did words flow forth from the trickling sound of the spring. Never again would the fractured moon become whole. The spring fairy suddenly realized that though she had found a place to belong, and though she had experienced fleeting happiness, she was still alone. The boy, now no longer a boy, could not perceive her flight, and blamed himself for his own solitude. Perhaps, perhaps she was merely a childish fantasy. He would think this to himself as he listened to the gargling of the spring. But that cool kiss was real, as was the wind that once played with her hair. Suddenly, he realized that though he had met and parted with countless new friends, and though he had adventured and returned more times than he could remember, he was still alone in the end. So, as they had done many years ago, The boy's tears fell into the pure pond, soaking into the fractured moonlight. But this time, the spring fairy did not come as promised. Stubbornly, she turned her back, willing to be the object of an innocent childhood dream, to be a fleeting guest wandering from a foreign land, but unwilling to allow her near eternal life to break her lover's promise. Legend has it that whenever the rain pours down, the raindrops that fall into the pond mix with the tears of the spring fairy. To his dying day, the boy believed wholeheartedly in the groundless superstition, but sadly, the spring fairy who fled her true feelings could never believe it herself. And that is Heart of Clear Springs. I thought that was a really nice, like, kind of unfulfilled love story in a way. You can kind of understand where the fairy is coming from, being an eternal creature, a creature of a creature of immortality. You can understand why she was concerned, but you can also sort of understand where the boy was coming from when she kissed him instead of just flat out rejected him. But oh well, that kind of thing does happen. Okay, so the next one is called A Drunkard's Tale, and this one is significantly longer. But it does only have 4 volumes. I'm just looking at the size of the scroll down bar, and it seems to be quite a decent length. Longer than a Heart of Springs, I think. Heart of Clear Springs. Um, so let's just get into it, right? Let's dive in. A Drunkard's Tale, Volume 1. In the land where the dandelion wine flows with In the land where the dandelion wine flows like a river, tall tales have a way of spreading far and wide, following closely in the wake of the whiff of wine. Far-fetched fables are always sure to spread when boasted between burps by inebriated bar patrons. For these stories share something in common with the slurred speech, and seasickness inducing swaying that so often accompanies them, which is that despite being clumsy and awkward, they are also highly entertaining. Legend has it that there was once a famous drunkard in Mondstadt. It was said that he could hold his alcohol as well as any hunter from Springvale in the off season. And yet, still he would drink till he was drunk. Every time that he drank, he He would not budge so much as an inch back from the bar at the tavern until not a single mora was left in his coin pouch, and not a single drop of wine remained in his glass. One night this drunkard was doing his best to stumble home after a practically satisfying session of especially heavy drinking. A combination of his spinning head, blurred vision, and zigzagging strides served to navigate him towards a forest populated by wolves. Today, of course, wolvendom is presided over by the great wolf king of the north, and the ominous atmosphere that emanates from inside the forest is sufficient to deter most sober-headed visitors from approaching the area. According to the elderly hunters, the Wolf King gathered the spirits of the wolves there to prevent outsiders from trespassing into territory where they are not welcome. But this was an age long before the Wolf King and the North Wind had descended upon that forest, bringing order and peace to the woven race. At that time, the forest was a perilous place where wild wolves fought for survival. A fierce blood feud between wolves played out deep inside the dense foliage, concealed from view by concealed from view and unbeknownst to any human. Least of all to the drunkard, who had by this point managed to transport his drunk self quite some distance inside the forest. He stumbled forward into the darkness with that dogged determination that only drunkards possess, deterred neither by the tree roots that would trip him up every few steps, nor by the stray branches that would slyly slap him in the face from time to time. Before long, a pair of green eyes began darting through the forest, their gaze fixed on him, tracking his every movement. Those eyes belonged to a lone wolf, who silently pursued the drunkard from behind, all the while musing itself. This is the most peculiar sight I've ever seen in all my life. No one had dared to set foot in the wolves' forests for in hundreds of years, be be they a knight clad top to toe in shining steel armor, or a desperate fugitive dressed in rags. Even the callous nobles refused to exile their slaves there, for fear of inciting the wrath of the wild wolves and bringing unwanted trouble to their own territory. And yet this odd fellow dares to stroll in here all by himself. How strange indeed. The lone wolf pondered at this strange phenomenon as it followed the drunkard intruder through the forest, doing its best to ignore the stench of alcohol that was wafting its way. Volume 2. It is it is all it is a well-known fact that wolves have a far keener sense of smell than humans. Another way of putting this is that their noses are much more sensitive. Little wonder, then, that the stench of alcohol emanating from the wolves' now historically intoxicated prey was quite stifling, and caused tears to well up in its eyes. Oh, the, thought, the wolf thought to itself. Having been born in the wilderness and grown up in the forest, the wolf had never had any contact with human civilization before this night, and though it had once caught the faint scent of wine wafting across Cider Lake, it did not know the scent's origin, less still understand the significance of that substance to humankind. Perhaps this peculiar fellow is is a relative of the skunk, for it seems that he discovered my presence quite some time ago, and now means to poison me in an effort to secure his escape. The wolf is a creature. The wolf pondered this possibility as it braced itself against an onslaught of alcoholic fumes, picked up its pace and discreetly maneuvered its way into the drunkard's shadows, the perfect vantage point from which to inspect its prey. The wolf is a creature of caution and calculation. The drunkard, meanwhile, is a different sort of creature entirely. And yet, though wine tends to dizzy the mind and dull the senses, it sometimes affords its consumers the curious capacity to detect the subtlest of changes in the direction of the wind. Perhaps this could explain how a bumbling drunkard fumbling through the forest was suddenly able to discover the presence of a wolf that had been stealthily following him the entire time. Or perhaps the alcoholic fumes given off by the drunkard were suffocatingly potent to diminish the wolf's mental acuity, to the point that the wolf became less mindful of the terrain beneath his paws. The resulting sound of snapping twigs thus alerting the prey to the predator's presence. Is there? Don't suppose you know which way the toilet is by any chance? The bumbling drunkard rubbed his bleary eyes. Foul smelling human, snarled the wolf. Who are you? And whence proceed your stench? The wolf flared its nostrils, bore its fangs, and growled. Not only was the drunkard unafraid to when he heard the wolf's gruffly voiced threat, but he even became quite animated. My friend, the drunkard replied, clearly I've offended you somehow. Sorry about that. But anyway, Mondstadt's tradition says you're not allowed to be drunk or bored at the same time. So here we are out in the woods on this glorious moonlit night. How about I tell you a story? His proposal was promptly punctuated by the almighty Belch. Before this point, the wolf had no intention of listening to the of belching buffoon's drunken ramblings. In fact, it was poised to deliver a fatal blow to its prey by lunging for its neck, sinking its fangs in, and tearing his throat out clean out. But the drunkard's belch blasted a further bout of fumes in the wolf's direction, assailing the nostrils with such force that it ruins the wolf's appetite entirely. Grudgingly, the wolf agreed. "Grr, perhaps I'm not so hungry after all. Let's see what nonsense tales you have to tell." The drunkard stretched out his arms and let out a loud yawn, disturbing a few dandelions in the process. And with that, the drunkard began to tell his story. Volume 3. Legend tells of a lone wolf that roams a barren wasteland far, far away. Once he had been king of his pack, leading them in the hunt, in battle, and in the search for a home. Now, the sole remaining legacy of those days were the scars that covered his body. He had led the way as they ran across open plains, navigated through abandoned ruins, and passed through the domains of monsters and the Seelie. The wasteland was a cruel place. The Wolf King grew older with each passing day, and the other wolves gradually dispersed. As time went by, the wolf pack's history faded into a distant memory, until finally only the aged Wolf Kings remained the sole survivor of its pack. This wasteland is said to be a land beyond the domain of deities, inhabited only by the grotesque ghostly remains of of fallen gods, where the former palaces of the Seelie now stand empty. So when the solitary old wolf passed by a gray palace and heard the sound of music coming from within, it caught his attention. Never before have I heard sound so pleasing to the ears. Whether it be a song of bird or insect, that it stays the pangs of hunger and in my starved stomach, as this tune does. Intrigued, the wolf stepped inside the gray hall, trod across the overgrown weeds, and passed by a broken sarcophagus, on which a portrait of the deceased ruler was still clearly visible. Finally, he came to an inner room where he saw a fair maiden strumming at her instrument. Her skin was ashen white and her head was bowed down. Her slender fingers gently stroked the fragile strings of the lute as she played a long forgotten and mournful melody. The wolf sat down in front of the pale young maiden and forgot about the pain and of hunger, thirst, and loneliness for a short while. As it listened in silence to her, the chirping of insects on a long gone autumn night is the chores of exiles singing mankind's most ancient songs as they out their plight. Um, okay. I am very tempted to take a nap, but at the same time, I didn't want to just take a nap, so let's proceed. Okay, I'm drink some water, um, maybe I'll go get coffee, but I don't drink coffee. Maybe I'll get some tea. Like, what do I do? I need something to keep me awake. Anyways, I should be fine. I'll be fine. Where was I? The chirping of insects. You know what? I'll stand up. I'll fucking stand up. I'll stand up. Okay. It's gonna look so weird. You can see me just bobbing. Okay. The chirping of insects on a long gone autumn night is the chorus of exiles, singing mankind's most ancient song as they live out their plight. S- stripped of all the bod- stripped of all that the body once held close and the soul once held dear, songs and memories are all that now remain of yesteryear. The last singers, the first Seelie, they play their final tune in the Hall of Angels. The tiny Seelie playing in the forest were also drawn to the young maiden's tune and flocked to her to pay their respects. "What is this song that you play?" the wolf asked, puzzled, for it understood every line, every word, every syllable she spoke. And yet, hers was a language that it had never heard before, quite unlike that of any other living being. "A song of the Seelie," replied the pale young maiden in a soft voice. "Long, long ago, we wrote this song." Uh, Voice crack, sorry, hang on. I just realized something. Sheep's not supposed to be there. Long, long ago, we wrote this song for the human savages, yet now we sing it to mourn our own fate. The wolf began to sing along, albeit clumsily, to the maiden's tune. The wolf's voice was husky and broken, filled with a lifetime of sorrow. "What are you singing?" the maiden asked the wolf. "This is our song," responds the wolf. "It sounds ghastly." The maiden made no attempt to soften her criticism as she continued to cherish the lute strings. "But you are welcome to sing along with me all the same." And so a shared chorus sung by fair young maiden and weary old wolf filled the chambers of a long abandoned palace. It is said that to this day adventurers who passed by this place still hear a strange yet harmonious melody sounding from within. And then the story ends here. The wolf licked its lips somewhat ruefully and then said, "I suppose I shall tell you a story now." And with that, the wolf cleared its throat and began to tell its tale. Volume 4. Legend has it that the first wine of Mondstadt was brewed in the age when the north wind howled. In the age when the kings of ice and frost fought for dominion, Mondstadt's forebears brewed rudimentary wine from wild fruits, even as they shivered in the bitter cold. They did so to ease the pain of their frost-bitten fingers and to give them the courage to face the harsh and unforgiving ice. For at the time the land of Mondstadt was engulfed by ice and snow, and the dandelions had not yet reared their heads. It is said that the first person in Mondstadt to discover the craft of wine brewing was a grossly negligent guard. Give me a moment. In a tribe beset by blizzards, beset, beset. In a tribe beset by blizzards on all sides, it was the enviable job of the hardy hunter-gatherers to stock the storage pits with food, and it was the guard's task to guard against intruders. The sight of a human intruder was a rare one indeed in that harsh environment, but there were other creatures who could better withstand the cold and would burrow underground to reach the food stocks. The rules of the tribe were that one person should inspect the storage pits at all times, filling in any mouse holes discovered, or better still, catching them red-handed in the act of pilfering, to keep the tribe's food supplies at plentiful levels. At the time, the damp, dark caves needed constant care and attention to prevent the food they held from going bad and rotting. On top of that, the mischievous little creatures that hid away out of sight would sometimes play pranks on the guards. One day, a willy wind spirit noticed that the grossly negligent guard was once again being grossly negligent. So, the spirits took the form of a fox and crept into a pile of wild apples. There, it caused yeast to grow, ripening the apples and causing them to ferment. The grossly negligent guard was ravenous when he returned, and elected to partake of one of these apples. The mellow taste of the fermented fruit delighted both his body and mind. Immediately he took the animal hide and squeezed the apple juice from he took animal hide and squeezed apple juice from the apples, creating wine. The grossly negligent guard who first invented brewing in the age of ice and snow also became Mondstadt's first drunkard. It is said that he was the first person ever to fall into a drunken dream. In his first drunken dream, he drunkenly entered the dreams of a lone wolf, somewhere in the long lost past, or possibly the far-flung future. He fought fang and claw with rival wolf packs, battling with humans for food in the midst of a raging snowstorm, and met the first Seelie. The tribe-dwelling human and the pack-dwelling wolf could not bear to live in solitude. This newly brewed wine served to bring man and wolf together in their dreams, but their attitudes towards those dreams were poles apart. The human who knew only the wind and snow yearned for the wasteland where the lone wolf runs freely, but the lone wolf was fearful of the human's desire. It could not understand why this human was captivated by dangerous illusions and sought hope from within them. With concern, the wolf even more was that when what concerned the wolf even more was that when a drunken human dream, it could no longer distinguish whether it was a wolf or a human with a woven spirit. So the wolf swore an oath never to touch the human's poison again, to resist the allure of wine. Wolves are not the children of the wind, and the land of wine and song is not their home. So the wolves left the human's domain and settled far off in the wilderness and deep in the mountain forests, places where the scent of wine could not reach them. What you humans called wine, we wolves call the abyss, the wolf haughtily concluded. But as the wolf turned towards the drunkard to say this line, it discovered that the drunkard is now lying fast asleep in a bed of pine branches. I'm just moving my chair back and out of the way. The wolf was most displeased, and violently expelled a puff of air from its nostrils before leaving the still pungent pile of sleeping human to his business and going on his way. And that is a drunkard's tale. Uh, yeah. Sorry, I was really starting to like lose it in the middle. Like I was actually falling asleep to my own reading. Holy shit. Anyways, I'm fine now. I'm standing up while I'm reading these, which is actually kind of difficult because you can see the model is doing weird things. The model is doing weird things. I'm Do I really look that surprised? Hello? Thank you. Okay, so next up is Records of Gallet. Of the Gallet. Gallant. Hello, hi Hitsu. Oh, hi. I'm just reading. I had to stand up because I was starting to fall asleep from my own reading. This is I think it's our third book. Yeah, it's our third book. So, this is our third book. It seems much shorter than the rest. What's cute? I'm swaying. Love you too. No, you. So I have four books left in my archive. We have 2 hours left to go, and I have many stories yet to tell. Okay, so this book. This book is called Records of the Gallant. There's only 2 volumes in this one, and it seems quite short, but we should be fine. So, Hitsu, since you're here, why don't you go grab your blankie, get some hot cocoa or something, and relax. Maybe grab Dad over here so that he can judge my reading. JK, don't actually do that. Okay, Records of the Gallant, Volume 1, The Hermit. The stone forest of Jiyun Karst is a mysterious place engulfed in mist all year round. Myths and legends abound among the herb gatherers, telling of adepti and evil spirits. Once there was an herb seller called Qiangu, who went to Jiyun Karst to investigate the distribution of medicinal herbs there. Unbeknownst to him, a group of brigands. I lost where it was. A group of brigands had followed him into the mountains. They waited for cover of night, and when he let his guard down, they struck. He was knocked unconscious, and the brigand oh, he was knocked unconscious. The brigands grabbed his possessions, bound him from head to foot, and left him alone in the valley. Deep in the night, the herb seller finally awoke. He struggled against the ropes that bound him and cried out for help. But the vast mountains did not respond. The only sounds to be heard in the thick mountain forest, save for the echoes of his own pitiful wails, were the faint cries of the birds disturbed by them. Qiangu sank into despair and sighed with sorrow. Just when he thought all hope was lost, a deep voice came rumbling through the mountains, cutting through the cries of nocturnal birds and the whistling of night. "Arise! I am unable to," the herb seller protested amidst floods of his tears. His cry frightened off the fox that was prowling in the night. But as he tensed his body once more against the ropes that bound him, he discovered they had completely loosened. The herb seller stood up. No sooner had he arisen than the disembodied voice, without pausing to hear the expression of gratitude that would be customary in such situations, spoke to him once more. "Ascend!" As instructed, Qiangu ascended the mountain, following the winding dirt track to the summit as the horizon began to glow in the east. From the summit he saw a twisted and withered pine growing into the cliff, its branches sprawling outwards as if trying to escape into the air. The gentle creaking of the branches drew his attention to the ropes that hung from them at the other end, which hung the brigands from the night before, bound in like fashion from head to foot. And then he saw the old man whose voice he had heard. His hair and beard as white as snow, sat atop a curiously shaped rock, as if it was his throne. The old man took one look at Qiangu's disheveled appearance and grinned mischievously before returning his possessions to him intact. Qiangu inquired as to the old man's origins, but he replied that he belonged to the mountains, his home being wherever he roamed, and his bed being wherever he laid his head. Qiangu sought to thank the old man with all manner of courtesies and compensations, but he dismissed all of them. After much deliberation, he took just a single mora to one day give as a wedding gift to Qiangu's beloved daughter, in order that he might attend the wedding feast. Out of disaster seemed to spring forth good fortune, for following this incident Qiangu's store grew even more popular, while word of the wealthy herb seller himself spread far and wide. Oh, thanks for the hydrate. Some say that after making his fortune, he returned to the What are words? Some say that after making his fortune, he returned to Jieyun Karst in search of the old man, but found nothing save for a few abandoned tents and empty wine bottles. Some claim to have spotted the old man at Yao Guangshou, disguised as a miner and darting around like the wind between the precipice between the precipices. Precipices? Oh, I can't hear it. Right. Okay, I was right. Others insist that he is a fisherman who spends his time saving those who become stranded at sea. Should have saved Paimon. The stories are too many to count, and yet no one knows the old man's name. Excuse me. Lamentably, age and ill health have now ushered in the twilight years of Qiangu's life, while his beloved daughter remains unmarried. Perhaps the day will still come that the old man from the mountain attends the wedding feast, but that day seems impossibly far in the future for Qiangu. Volume 2. The land of Liyue was not always ruled by Rex Lapis. Many gods walked the land in that distant what the fuck? I've never heard of this word. Many gods walked the land in that distant epoch. The area known as the Guili Plains was once an area lush. If I was a god, what would I preside over? What would I preside over? I don't know. I don't know. Hmm. Hmm. I don't know. You want to be a god of harvest, a god of cooking? Okay. I mean, I honestly don't know. What do you mean, my cat model? It's V2 Studios. I'm just borrowing it. I don't know. I don't know what kind of god I would be. I guess, why don't you guys decide that? I'll probably tweet it out and see what you guys answer. Where was I? I forgot. Ah, but it was beset by troubles and on every side, forcing its residents of old to flee, while the prosperity of Liyue Harbor would attract many of those who took their place. But even so, many tales of gallantry continue to circulate in these wilds. In tales of traveling merchants and porters, there was once a mysterious figure that would surface in the dead of night upon the plains. It was a maiden in a long indigo robe, striding along the shallows of the Bishui River, the moon wrapping her face with silver light, as the night wind carried her words up to the shimmering, sleepless stars. According to guests at Wangshu Inn, only those who get lost amid the firefly lights in the summer nights might see her, and only those who can discern the scent of glaze lilies amidst dancing lights and sea leaves floating in the dark could find her tracks. Some guess that she might be a lost illuminated beast, or a sole servant of some long dead god, gently mourning her master only at night. And some also believed her to simply be a gallant hero, like those who spurn civilization, hiding their real names. No one knows how her story began, but it ended with the tale of a certain hunter. But unlike the stories of those merchants, the hunter encountered her brandishing a sword against several perilous shadows under the merciless moonlight. After an elegant and sharp dance, the maiden was nowhere to be seen, with naught left but a pile of bloody dust. The next day, some inquisitive citizens would discover the corpse of Millilith and land surveyors by the river. After this, no matter how many search parties the Ministry of Civil Affairs would send, no one saw that Riverside maiden ever again. Perhaps the deadly dance was the fruit of some vendetta, or perhaps that woman had herself been some great brigand? Brigand. Oh, it's going so beautifully. I keep forgetting that I can't hear it. Yeah. We already looked up that word earlier as well. Where was I? Oh, some great brigand. Or perhaps the matter does not require any rhyme or reason at all. Heroes are heroes, after all, drawing their blades for reasons beyond common comprehension. But as the lights of Liyue Harbor consumed the deserted countryside villages day by day, this legend, too, would slowly disappear. Still, the legends hold that the river bank that maiden had used to roam remains filled with blooming glace lilies to this day. And that was Records of the Gallant. I think that was pretty cool, although it was kind of weird that the first volume and the second volume didn't really actually have any correlation. They're basically two different stories altogether. Anyways, moving on. Insert sweeping transition. Shoo. Okay, so this one is one of the last three. This one is called Breeze Amidst the Forest, and there's only 2 volumes in this one. And it looks like it's about the same length as Records of the Gallant. So let us dive right in. I should probably tell you guys how many stars each one of these are. Yeah, I'll do that. So, the previous ones we've been reading up until now have been 3 stars, except for the Mondstadt Tower, which is 2 stars. This is the last 3-star book that I have. So, Breeze Amidst the Forest, Volume 1. Ballad Selection Excerpt. Oh my god. What's Genshin using words that I've never seen written down before? Excerpt. Okay. Ballad Selection Excerpt. Breeze Amidst the Forest and Breeze Upon the Lake constitute the 2-volume collection of narrative poems. The compilation is the result of the tireless work of scholars who have recorded the arranged countless songs sung by Mondstadt bards. Bards often elaborate upon the fabricate history to draw in an audience and earn a few extra mora. Hence, most of their works have extremely low credibility and has allowed what has allowed the songs to remain popular to this day and to stand the test of the 1,000 winds of time is the threads of spectacular imagination and ingenious ingenious rhetoric that had been woven into them. What is to be sung hails from ancient times. The gods walked among us in their prime. The poet who had finished recounting the tales of the ruins and Vanessa began to tell the story of the wind dragon. He began to sing. The story to be told hails from ancient times when the gods walk among us in their prime. The dragon, graced by Anemo, was born in the high heavens in the age of wonders. He slowly descended and inspected everything with curious eyes. He landed in a village, but the terrified villagers threw rocks at him. The dragon could not understand why they cried out in fear. He landed in a cemetery and only heard the lament of grieving people. The dragon could not understand what they murmured in sorrow. He landed in an orchard, but was cursed by furious farmers who lost their trees. The dragon could not understand why they screamed in anger. The world was too complicated for a young dragon. The dragon was bewildered, yet he did not give up. One day, the dragon heard music pour out from the holy lyre de Hermel. This was the name of the lyre belonging to the animal archon. Enchanted by the poetry, the wind dragon landed beside the best singer under the skies. People panicked from the mighty elemental dragons and the great archons that reigned over the earth, but had never seen eye to eye. Behold his beauty and oh my god. Oh, it was correct. Okay. Ahem. Behold his beauty and benignity. The wind-born bards sang. But we do not know him, the people replied. What mysterious music lies behind music and what I can't read. What mysterious magic lies behind music and poetry that has the power to mesmerize both dragons and humans alike? I, for one, cannot fathom it. The dragon decided to stay with the bard, for he, too, wishes to be understood by all souls. He learned human speech and the wind-born bard's singing techniques omitted. Later generations regarded him as one of the four winds that watched over and protected Mondstadt. An Astros son, a, uh, oh my god, what are these words? Why do they always use words that I don't even see written down? Atris. An Atris sun befell its kingdom, and a luminous pearl lost its glow. Nevaeus silk grew dim, and wheaten gold burned brilliantly no more. So begins another tale that occurred in the lost Conria kingdom. The Eclipse dynasty had fallen, and disasters spread across the land. The alchemy known as gold was corrupted by their own greed and ambition, and created an army of shadowy monsters with their uncanny powers. Durin, a black serpentine dragon, rose from the sea to cast its shadows over Mondstadt. But it was at this very moment that there was no one to inherit the title of the Lion Fang Knight. Thus, the Knights of Favonius could not fly their falcon flag. The persistent yet des- despondent prayers call upon the Archon of Mondstadt, the wing-born bard. The strings of the lyre were strummed once more, and the wind dragon was summoned forth. As Mondstadt's last line of defense, the wind dragon battled the wicked dragon to death of the raging storms. The wind dragon prevailed. He tore open the throat of the wicked dragon at the cost of ingesting its poisonous blood. The blood of the wicked dragon was distorted gold, with the power of crumpled mountains and poison the earth. The wind dragon protected Mondstadt with his life, and his only wish was to be understood by humans. And so he drifted off into a deep slumber. The holy lyre played a sorrowful tune. The holy lyre sang, "Should you awaken, spread your wings, and live your life freely. A dragon is born to soar the skies, and the mortals shall surely grasp your beauty." Typically, when life arises from the elements, it either descends or becomes a slime, or ascends and becomes a crystal fly. Rarely does this process give rise to dangerous elemental monsters. Elemental dragons are rarely seen and have the powers to match the gods of old. Volume 2: The Dragon. An excerpt from an investigation into the cultural customs of the Wind Kingdom, more commonly known as Records of Customs and Culture by Jacob Musk. The wolf of the Knights of Boreas, and the lion of the Lionfang Knight or Dandelion Knight, the falcon of the Knights of Favonius, and the winged dragon Dvalin, have been long regarded as the four winds that watch over Mondstadt. After the Lionfang Knight liberated Mondstadt, the Knights of Favonius was established, and the Knight of Boreas joined them. The tradition of worshipping the four winds was gradually formed in Mondstadt. However, Dvalin, the ancient wind dragon, predated them all. Approximately 100 years ago, the land was in chaos. Darkness spread, contaminating everything it touched. Barbarians and foul creatures roamed the lands, forcing people to dwell within city walls. It was an especially difficult time for Mondstadt. The Lionfang Knight was without a suitable heir, and the Knights of Favonius had lost many of its brave men and women during the bitter wars. During the most difficult of times, Durin, the corrupted dragon of immeasurable power, began attacking Mondstadt. The prayers of Mondstadt's people awoke the animal Archon, and his will summoned forth the wind dragon Dvalin. As the last defender of Mondstadt, Dvalin battled Durin with all his might. The result was clear. Durin's remains still atop the snowy peaks of the south of Mondstadt, but the story of how the battle ended was lost to time. Durin's body. It is said that Dvalin ripped Durin's throat, and together they fell from the sky. Durin's body sunk into the snow, while Dvalin was summoned by the animal Archon and fell into a slumber. People used to believe that Dvalin would awaken whenever Mondstadt faces a new threat. But in these times of peace, the belief of the Four Winds has gradually eroded, and their temples lie all but completely deserted. Citation of an unknown origin. By the time the knights finally discovered the foreign monstrosities named Storm Terror, with which they had clashed countless times, was in fact the Valen of the Four Winds, the en- the enmity that had grown between them and driven them to conflict could not be undone. One can scarcely imagine the betrayal Dvalin must have felt when he awoke after 100 years of slumber, only to find that his people of Monsac, whom he had protected his life, had forsaken him. And that is Breeze Amidst the Forest. And now, on to our last two books. So, they're quite long, actually. Okay. So, this book is 4 stars. It is called Vera's Melancholy. It has 10 volumes. It has 10 volumes. Yeah, it has 10 volumes. As you would expect from something a star up, I suppose. Okay. Alright. Let's get started then, shall we? Vera's Melancholy, Volume 1. Endless days of infinite worlds. There are times when I think to myself, there's nothing to do in this tiny village. What a dull place to live. This wasn't the first time that Vera had complained about her hometown, the small country village of Delphi. Her frown eased slightly as she laid on the hillside near the village, eyes closed, feeling the breeze of the early summer. Then where in this world would you not consider dull? Her buddy Sachi asked curiously. Vera sat up and leaned forward. I believe on the other side of the starry sea is a planet inhabited by gods who can answer all prayers and wishes, and everyone bearing a wish is on a journey to go there. I believe, in our universe, there is a world currently in a war against doomsday, where the noble and where the noble and elegant souls of 14 Valkyries burn bright, if only for a brief but magnificent moment. You've been reading too many of those weird fantasy novels. But this village really is dull. When was the last time anything fun happened here? Funny you should say that. A new family did move into our village recently. Novelty and fun aren't the same thing. Despite what she had said, Vera decided to visit the newcomers. Sachi, however, remembered his family rules and walked back home for dinner. Vera gave the door to the newcomer's abode a gentle push. Much to her surprise, it wasn't locked. Anybody home? No sooner had the words left her mouth than the living room cupboard doors flew open, and out jumped a black-haired boy wearing glasses. He was followed by a tentacled blue slime. Make way! Tao, why did you let a stranger in? The black-haired boy gently pushed Vera out of his way and picked up an axe by the door. You leave me no choice. Since you've seen everything, there is only one thing for it. Thus began the biggest crisis of Vera's life. Volume 2. My backyard is slightly bigger than the entire universe. All I can do now is ask you to help me. The black-haired boy who called himself Ike. Ike? From Niji Sanji? JK, Ike doesn't have black hair. We all know this. Ike, please don't kill me. I swear. I know you don't watch my streams, but please don't kill me if you find this. Ahem. The black-haired boy who called himself Ike handed Vera a kitchen knife. He walked back to the cupboards and began slashing at the tentacles frantically. Come and help me close this door. If a tentacle starts attacking you, use this kitchen knife to defend yourself. Ike's glasses were now covered in blue slime. It's funny, this Ike also wears glasses. I can't. Hurry! We can't let this evil demon come. Hurry! We can't let this evil demon cross into Delphi. Upon hearing his words, Vera helped Ike close the door. While they were pushing back the tentacles, Vera accidentally stabbed Ike twice in the back. Thankfully, Ike's healing spells were quite potent. How do you stab someone in the back? What? Oh my god. I shall explain everything to you. I am in fact over 1,000 years old, and this door is a gateway to anywhere in the universe. The tentacled monster is an old one from the large Magellanic Cloud? Magellanic Cloud? We'll go with that. I went there to get something. Ike was covered in slime from head to foot by this point. He wiped his glasses with Vera's dress and spoke. Is there anything else that you'd like to know? Who's Tao? Vera didn't seem to mind. An evil spirit that reside in the man-devouring castle. It has served me as a butler since I subdued it. Strangely, it behaved quite friendly towards you. Vera's parents... Oh, hang on. Let me just scroll down. Vera's parents always reminded her that people are destined to build families, and that it was futile to entertain dreams of anything beyond the housestead. Her buddy Sachi once told her that if a lively girl like her was to marry someone from a faraway land, the whole village would become unbearably lonely. The real reason Sachi said this was that he was something of a weakling, and was sure to be ferociously bullied if he ended up with having to play with the boys. The human spirit is still too immature. I need to guide you both through the wonders of your childhood. Ike extended his inviting arms to Vera. You will sing every step of the way on your long journey to youth. From the Orion Arm to the eternal Jahannam, from the torrents of time to the depths of the starry sea. How far is beyond? Any place in this universe is just as boring as my backyard, he said. The scale of everything beyond follows the heart, Ike replied. Thus, my heart is slightly bigger than the entire universe. Volume 3. The Man Who Stole the Lone Star. I am the second rightful heir of the Andromeda Empire. and I have more than 200 titles to my name. You shall call me the Princess Andro Basilisks." The charming girl then crossed her arm, savoring the moment of her entrance in her mind and giggling to herself in amusement. Her sole reason for grousing Her sole reason for gracing Delphi is with her presence is to marry Ike. "If you, he who conquered a quarter of the universe, marry me, my safety shall be guaranteed after my elder sister takes the throne." "If I may ask, how big is the Andromeda Empire?" Vera asked. "I reckon there are more than 9,000 inhabitable planets. With so many stars in your possession, why come steal my brilliance?" "So you aren't here to harm Vera?" Sachi curiously asked Ike, who was carrying the scrolls and globes of other planets. "Of course not. I think she would make a great assistant." After putting everything down, he clapped his hands. "You like her?" "Me? No, not at all. I don't like her at all." Sachi looked away, worried that the old sage might discern his true feelings. He reached for a box full of photo frames. He grabbed a few at random, each picture depicting a different beauty. "Look at them. They all said that they gave me their one and only true love. But did they? In reality, I was just one of their many lovers." Sachi didn't know when or where he had heard the saying, but it blurted out from his mouth in a moment of annoyance. "With so many stars in your possession, why come steal my brilliance?" Volume 4. All That Glitters. "The people in these photographs are all so pretty," Vera exclaimed as she picked up Ike's box of framed photos. "Of course they are. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had the chance to leave me with photographs to remember them by." Ike had no intention of evading. After all, he was a galactic sage who was over 1,000 years old. So of course he knew that girls were easily hurt and that they would become troubled very easily. Ike would thus never cheat a girl. Take notes, boys. "Having seen the starry host, I thus make star-shaped jewels to remember them by." He continued to explain. "But those stars that shine across the universe do not belong to anyone. So, it is also impossible to steal them." Vera did not understand. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this is for the sake of the foolish fellow who isn't present right now. Pay no mind, humans are far too young." "I will serve as a go-between between you and Ike," Sachi said to the Princess of and Andromeda. I already forgot. Empire, in a loud voice. "Huh? I love Vera. I don't. Disgusting. Boring. Be silent, worm. You are an offense to my ears. I already acknowledge Vera as my friend. I will not hand her over to a cowardly person like you." What? Volume 5. Roadside Picnic. When Ike was taking a nap, his servants waged a terrible war against each other. The great wizard had subdued many gods and demons to serve under him. As the most formidable wizard of his day, Ike was in command of gods and demons more numerous than the entire entries in a dictionary. But Who was the strongest of those under his rule? The gods and demons decided to find out for themselves through battle. Unfortunately, they seem to have er- erron- erron- erroneously erroneously regarded as their own three, who were neither god nor human nor demons. The princess, Sachi, and Vera. Ike only slept for 2 hours, but in that time, 3 stars had already been destroyed. Why should I protect you? The princess pulled her hand away, and the giant demon plummeted to the ground, its eyeballs gone. The dominant race of the Andromeda Empire may look lovely and sweet, but on their palms grow two special mouths, which they use to devour eyeballs of their lovers and those they vanquished. Are we not friends? Vera wiped the blood off her face and appeared to be hurt by Princess's words. Yeah, yes. The princess blushed and looked away. I already regard you as my only friend from what happened. I was not referring to you, Vera. No! Sachi yelled as the gnarly jaws of a dragon closed around him. Do you surrender to me now? The dragon jeered. Surrender and concede that you are worthless lowly rats and I shall let you live. I surrender! I surrender! Let me go! Sachi screamed. Why, a lizard of your despicable breed should know better than to utter such foolish words. Even the geckos in my palace would crush you. The princess gave her wrist a twirl. No! No! This has nothing to do with me! Sachi yelled as the dragon cast him into the sky, and just like that, the battle between the dominant species of Andromeda and the ancient giant dragon was over. The moral? You won't get hurt if you just surrender. Sachi was knocked out of the contest and woke Ike up with a slap of a slipper. Vera also survived thanks to the protection of the princess. Ugh, you imbeciles! The mere sight of you is revolting. Don't come near me. Don't talk to me. Don't look at me. Nor breathe the same air as me, you lowly scum. The princess could not have a lower opinion of Sachi. Volume 6. For every season. Though those things had indeed happened, they were occurrences on a galactic scale. Now something more mundane is about to happen. The date of the town festival was drawing near. I suppose it's finally my turn to introduce you two to this small town then, Vera said as she served the princess and Ike her very own braised dishes. After all, those things had after all, those things they had encountered in their galactic escapade. I was choked. I'm fine. After all, those things they had encountered in their galactic escapades had to be explained by the princess and Ike. If there was any knowledge Vera had to present to them, it was the knowledge of her hometown. Hydrating. Afterward, the great king's first messenger, the brave knight Hoffman, strode west across 2 continents, crossing great oceans and rivers. As for the imperial sage, the witch from the east, she passed by her hometown on her road eastwards, and then came by the land of the Nether. Thus, they finally met here. Huh? Is that so? How interesting. Though she was trying hard not to let Vera notice that she did not, in fact, care for the story at all, the princess's acting skills require some work. So, that can only mean that this place is on the polar opposite side of this world from the great king's capital, right? Ike said, commenting on a seemingly unimportant aspect of the tale. That's true if you think about it. Vera rubbed the back of her head with a crooked smile. I've always said that I want to leave this place, but in the end, I discovered that this is the place that I am most familiar with. Having come to this realization on the eve of the town's anniversary, Vera began to cry, right in front of Sachi's eyes. You numbskull, you made Vera cry! The princess made her entry with a flying kick, sending Sachi hurtling away. Volume 7, Galaxy Wars. Reigniting the sun is not difficult, but I don't think the Andromeda Empire would like to see that happen, Ike said to the panicking Vera. Do you mean that the princess has kidnapped Sachi? Vera said, with some shock in her voice after giving the matter some thought. How do you come to that conclusion? I said that only the Andromeda Empire would be capable of kidnapping you and the princess. Ike then turned to face the innumerable lives that dwelled within the galaxy. He paused for a moment before declaring thus, Inhabitants of the galaxy, though I had come here upon the invitation of the High Saint King Libanon, to reignite the flames of the few remaining stars, it seems that the Andromeda Empire does not wish for your longevity, and thus has kidnapped my friend. Are you then putting their lives over that of all life? Saint King Libanon arose from her seat. If that is the case, why then do I rule over these stars? Finally, the Saint King would charge into peril alone, defeat the assassins from the Andromeda Empire, and rescue both the princess and Sachi. Afterward, she had a few words with Ike. I didn't know you could defeat the dominant species of Andromeda, Ike praised. They're a strong and hardy race, I suppose that's true. Then that you defeated the Holy Dragon and en route to become the Saint King. I am in fact the same Holy Dragon. I fused the Lebanon's flesh and blood, and now act according to her wishes. Huh? Ike was a little shocked by this. Ah, yes. Is that fellow the person the second princess is fond of? When I barged in, they were... What? Now, that was a much bigger shock for Ike. Volume 8, The Girls Themselves. I said it was a misunderstanding. She was about to eat me, Sachi explained. She did not... I don't think she was intending to eat you, Ike said, pushing his glasses up. The dominant race of Andromeda Empire have organs on the palms of their hands and allow them to capture and consume eyeballs. I've seen it before. Looks like some sort of lamprey? Sachi shivered a little as he said the last word. Let me finish. Ike wanted to touch his eyes, but wound up pressing his fingertips onto his glasses. Taking off his glasses, he touched his left eye. They practice eating eyes as two meanings. Submission, he touched his right eye, and love. Sachi also began to rub both his eyes, thinking about which it was back then. Whatever the case, I don't think the princess really understands the difference. Those who submit to her, those things she conquer, those who love her. Thank you, love, for the hydrate. They are all the same to her. People who can't hurt her in an imperial succession battle. Huh? No wonder those Andromeda Empire assassins kidnapped her. Two birds with one stone, eh? I am not getting involved in their succession wars. I can only help you support her better. Hey now, we're not like that. I mean, she doesn't hate me the most? And what were the girls talking about at this very moment? That may yet be an eternal mystery. Volume 9. Death awaits in abyssal waves. As Vera and Sachi grew up, the chemistry between the four changed in subtle and inexplicable ways. Enough excuses, Sachi said to Ike. Vera will not cease pursuing you even if you never reciprocate her feelings. Excuse me. Ike was a symbol of a faraway land. Excuse me. He stood for the unknown, for that which was waiting to be discovered. A brave bird would never nest there, but would forever adrift in the winds of admiration. Ike retorted, no matter which way you look at it, being 1,000 years old makes you an elderly person. Then we are well matched in age. The princess merrily chipped into their conversation. When Sachi finally mustered the courage to declare his love, he was met with the most dreadful fate. Remember the ancient sword that Ike and Vera received from the old ones when they first met? It was what Ike needed to propel destiny forward. But now, Vera had her fingers slit by its blade. And a malicious ancient virus sapped the life out of her. This is all your fault! Sachi grabbed Ike by the collar. If the tragedy had not happened, Ike would have laughed it off, for he was a gentle soul. But this time, he slapped Sachi's hand away. Do you know how to rewind time? Please, do it to save Vera. Even the princess begged. You don't understand. Only the future can save the past. Not the other way around. Ike bit his lip until blood came flowing down. A local myth speaks of a silver age when people enjoyed the seemingly endless childhood that could last up to 200 years. This only made their short maturity a pain to bear. To the others, childhood was long gone, but youth was forever beyond their reach. To be continued in Vera's melancholy, without Vera. Volume 10. Vera's Melancholy. To revive Vera, Sachi, Ike, and the princess embark on a spectacular and thrilling journey that lasted 20 years. From battling Signor Inferno and slaying the Star Devourer, the trio had even rescued 2 galaxies and the Galaxy Empire and eliminated 4 species of ruthless interstellar worms along the way. When Vera opened her eyes, she found herself in the arms of Sachi, now a hero of cosmic proportions. To the dominant species Andromeda 20 years was nothing but a few seconds. The princess looked lovely as always, but her con- countenance was a curious mix-up of genuine happiness and loss. Sachi, having lost an eye in his adventures, was now a tall and strapping young man. He, his flowing tears soaked into Vera's shoulders. Though still prone to tears, he was no longer his feeble-minded self. The years had been kind to Ike, who after all this time still had the same old smile on his face. I am but an echo of time, Ike said, as he began his preparations. As I've said, the past cannot change the future, for the predetermined rules of equilibrium are slightly more powerful than me. But the future, with its infinite possibilities, could save the world. Ike transformed Sashi back to who he was 20 years ago, and time reversed itself to the day of their departure. Everything seems to remain unchanged between the four, though they realized that the innocence they had once shared was one thing that they could never return. I'm sorry for depriving you of your childhood, Ike said to him. Now go. The youth that you deserve awaits. I have witnessed every wonder in the universe for your sake. And this is how my childhood ended? Sachi summoned every last ounce of his courage and stood up before the girl of his destiny. I will never reach my youth without you by my side. What will her answer be? Editor's note. The author of Vera's Melancholy is now off living in the high life with the royalties from the first 9 volumes. If you happen to see him in your corner of the universe, please help us to impress upon him the urgency with which we require the next volume. And that is Vera's Melancholy. Wow, how exciting. That was both good and very convoluted at the same time. There were times where I was like, did they jump time between each volume? I guess they did. Anyways, now it is time for us to complete our Genshin books, at least the ones that I finished finding, with The Fox and the Dandelion Sea. This is a 4-star book and has 11 volumes, and it seems significantly longer than Vera's Melancholy. So, let us get started and see what gorgeous futures and stories await us. The Fox and the Dandelion Sea, Volume 1. Dandelion, dandelion, ride the wind to a faraway land, the little fox chanted. He blew the dandelion flower and sent the seeds flying. He then spoke in a more serious tone. May my teacher's wishes ride the wind and reach the animal archon. The wind blew past us and swept away the dandelion seeds. But, excuse me, sorry, I read that wrong. Hang on. Did they fly to a better place, carrying my hopes and dreams there with them? When did this happen? Some time ago, behind the village, there grew a forest of countless lush trees. At the center of this forest was a small lake. The lake was like the stained glass windows of Mondstadt Cathedral, crystal clear and shimmering in the sunlight. The sun shone through the treetops and glistened onto the water's surface like fragments of gemstone. It was really something. The weather was cool that day. I was hunting in the forest when I arrived at the lake's edge. You didn't hear that. The shimmering water somehow reminded me of a girl I loved a long time ago. I couldn't remember how much about her. Uh, I couldn't remember much about her, but felt that her eyes must have looked like the lake, glittering as if harboring fragments of gemstone within. I became lost in thought as I stared at the the glistening water. Walking transfixed along the lakeside, I had forgotten entirely that I was out for a hunt. I came to when I heard the sound of something freezing up. It was a mist flower, growing by the lake, having just frozen the water around it. And next to it was a white fox, its tail frozen in the ice. Poor critter. It must have had its tail in the water by the mist flower while it was drinking. Mist flowers are dangerous plants and can cause frostbite if handled without care. Extreme caution must be taken while handling them. As it saw me approach, the fox struggled in fear, but its still frozen tail kept it rooted to the spot. The fox whimpered in pain. Oh no! Don't do this one. Hang on. Oh no, this won't do. I thought to myself. Poor critter. It's gonna die anyway if I don't save it. May as well end its pain by bringing it home as my game for the day. I imagine a delicious fox stew I could cook. What delicious fox stew I could cook with the carrots I grew. Just thinking about it gave me energy and brought a smile to my face, so I took out my hunting bow and slowly walked toward it. Be good and stay put. Volume 2. Be good and stay put. That's what my father's father had taught me. When I went fox hunting, I always chanted his words silently, so that my hands wouldn't shake when I pulled the bowstring. But just as I was about to release the arrow, the fox lifted its head and looked at me straight in the eye. It had eyes like the lake, glistening as if harboring fragments of gemstones within. My head began spinning as if a strong wind were blowing inside it. My arrow missed its target and instead smashed the ice, releasing the fox tail. The fox raised its tail and looked at me once more before running off into the forest. I came back to my senses and began to chase, but who in the world could run faster than a fox? Gradually, the fox began to shrink in the distance, eventually turning into a white spot. Like the crosshairs that you would see in FPS games. It doesn't actually say that, obviously. Hey, don't go! I shouted, barely catching my breath. After hearing my words, the spot seemed to slow. Is it waiting for me? I pondered. If running for its life, a fox is able to shake off anyone in no time. Foxes are strange animals, even while running on flat plain like at Windrise, where one can see clearly for miles ahead, they somehow still seem to disappear from view. It's almost as if they're running into another world. This led me to my conclusion. The fox must be waiting for me. Convinced of this fact, I chased the glittering white spot for hours on end. Suddenly, a chilling wind began to blow. I stood there, shivering, and what I saw next astounded me. How could this be? Suddenly, instead of one, there were now two white spots. More appeared. 3, 4, 5. They seemed to grow in number as the winds blew. Eventually, I lost track. Suddenly, with a stinging sensation, one of them flew directly into my eyes. Upon inspecting, I discovered that the spot were in fact no more than dandelion seeds, floating in the wind. The fox had disappeared. I laughed at my own foolishness and went home. For supper I had carrot fox stew, though without the fox, or any other meat for that matter. The gods know how much I hate boiled carrots without meat. I felt starving, and in time fell asleep. I awoke in the middle of the night to something stirring outside my door. Volume 3. Having failed to catch the fox, I went to sleep with only tasteless boiled carrots in my stomach. If not for what happened next, I would have forgotten about the fox by now. I awoke with a start to strange noises coming from outside my door. Perhaps boars have come to eat my carrots. I hopped out of bed and opened the door. To my surprise, there stood a tiny white fox. Its fur was so white, it was glowing in the dark. Not unlike the way sunlight sparkles in the water after filtering through the treetops. This must be the same fox from earlier. I thought of those eyes that looked like gemstones in the water, gazing at me as if from the depths of my heart. And so I walked over to the fox, unarmed and with tired eyes. This time it stayed still and waited for me in silence. The closer I drew, the greater in stature it became. By the time I stood before it, it had magically transformed into a human. She was a tall and slender woman with a swan-like neck and pearly skin. Her eyes sparkled like gemstone fragments in the pool of water. In the darkness, they seemed to shine like rays of sunlight on water after filtering through the treetops. What a beauty! She looks like the girl I fell in love with long ago, though I barely remember her name. Those eyes tell me she must be her, I thought to myself. This can't be. Must be some type of fox magic. Strange still, the idea of fox magic only occurred to me in that instant. You believed anything after you've seen those eyes. For all the magic and transformation I had witnessed, nothing amazed me quite as much as the gemstone lake of her eyes. For a while, we stood silently in the dead of night. At last, she spoke. Though not in our common tongue, I could somehow understand her. Some other magic, perhaps? I would have died by the lake if you had not come in my hour of need. She paused and continued. Though to die by that gemstone lake is not a bad thing. We foxes are grateful beings, so you must let me return the favor. She bowed to me, her long, silky black hair flowing down her shoulders like streams. Volume 4. For the next few days after that night, the fox never came again. Never came again. But in those few days, prey in the forest became gradually more abundant. Everything from small finches, long-legged cranes, and even scurrying boars. Maybe it was the change in season, or some sort of repayment from the fox. Whatever the case, the following days brought real stew to the table. But the fox never came again. As strange as it may seem, it had honestly been easier to sleep hungry. Even with a full, satisfied stomach, I couldn't help but think about the day we met, and the woman that the fox had turned into. When I gazed upon her eyes again, glittering, like water in a lake, lying half asleep, with a heart full of turmoil, I heard a faint sound outside my door. I hopped from the bed and swung the door open, eager to see a small white silhouette awaiting me. But there was no lake blue eyes, and there was no fluffy white foxtail. Instead, all I could see were dandelion seeds drifting in the moonlight, floating like snowflowers in the air. Suddenly, something caught my nostrils. Achoo! Immediately, the fluffy white dandelion seeds began to swirl, filling the sky like a snowstorm. Amidst the fluffy dandelion seeds, a pair of jewel-like eyes were looking at me, staring straight into my heart. Waving away the swirling dandelion seeds, I started walking towards the small fox. The fox raised its ears, and its furry tail flitted across the grass lane as it turned and disappeared into the depths of the forest. I hurried and followed closely behind. In amidst the darkness of the trees, soft patches of white could be seen weaved between the shadows. Their silhouettes tiptoed in moonlight, like moonlight cast among the tree leaves, or like the hesitant strides of a crafty Seelie. With unfaltering trust, I followed the fox round and about, soon emerging from the dark forest in a seemingly far-away land. There, in the moonlight, a sea of dandelions lay before me, stretched as far as my eyes could see. Stunned by the sight, I began to notice a rustling noise coming from just behind me. It was a light, delicate sound, like that of a girl walking barefoot across pine needles that leaves on the ground. The fox approached me from behind. The night air varied her presence, cool and damp, whisked together with a slightly bitter fragrance of dandelion flowers. Two hands with slender, ice-cold fingers rested atop my shoulders. She leaned in close to my ear, and her long hair draped down over my shoulder. Behind me, I felt the soft, rhythmic rhythm of both her breathing and her heartbeat. It made me feel calm and at ease. Only the foxes know the way to this place. It is the homeland of the dandelions. It is my desire that you would tarry here and teach my children human language. In return, I will teach you the magic of foxes. There was a tickle in my ear as if one of the dandelion seeds had grazed it its journey on its journey into the warm night air. Strange. I had certainly never mentioned anything about magic to her before. How could she have known? Without answering, she took my hand and led me into the depths of the sea of dandelions. The night breezes from the both north and south carried the bitter fragrance of dandelion flowers and faded memories. In those fields of velvet white, she showed me how foxes play gently together and their in their own fashion until the moon rose high into the starry sky. Volume 5. In a boundless sea of dandelions that existed in the middle of nowhere, I watched as the seeds took off with the softest touch of the breeze. Suddenly, I knew the answer to the question that had been lingering on my mind for years. So all the foxes that disappeared during hunts, this is where they hide away? I thought to myself. What a beautiful place. But when I began teaching the little fox to speak our common tongue, my heart always felt empty, like a wind was blowing inside me. When we talked, I would look into her gemstone lake eyes. In those moments, I felt like I was speaking not to a fox, but to a girl I used to love many years ago. Hi, Palnya. And so, when she was around me, it was as if I were in the presence of the child of someone I had once loved. We had an enjoyable time together, but the experience was somehow tinged with sadness. But the thought of her promise, if I succeeded in teaching her children to speak the common tongue. I shall impare the magic of transformation to you when the time comes. Remembering the way she made that solemn promise to me, I knew she was serious, and that gave me determination. I could transform into a flying bird once I'd mastered the magic. How high would I be able to fly? Maybe I could transform into a fish, and finally have the chance to go to the Musk Reef. Wow. I could even use magic to hunt. I couldn't contain my excitement. No more meatless carrot stews for me. I lost track of how long I stayed in the dandelion sea, where everything sways gently with the wind. One reason was that the little one was such a fast learner. I taught him not only our language, but everything I knew in one package. Reading a book? Yeah, so I'm reading one of the Genshin archive books at the moment, and once we finish this one, if we have time, we're gonna start my actual physical books. What I'm reading at the moment is called The Fox in the Dandelion Sea, which is a 4-star book in Genshin. It's got 11 volumes, and we're currently on volume 5. Mm. I'm standing up to read, so that's why my model is like doing some weird things sometimes. I can actually sway myself if I don't do it too fast. Hang on. I can even careen my head. Yeah. It's just more obvious when I'm standing up, I guess. Anyways. Where was I? But everything I knew in one package, including how to count, how to grow carrots, how to change window panes, how to sharpen knives. Cat version of thanks, Palnya. When it came to rest, we would talk idly. Why must you learn human speech? answered swiftly. So that I can transform into a human, I can befriend them. I continued. Why would you want to befriend the humans? He dropped his gaze. Volume 5. Volume 6. Huh! We just finished Volume 5. Oh my god. Volume 6. Why must you learn human speech? On one occasion, I asked the little fox this question. He answered cheerfully in the common tongue, so that when I transform into a human, I can befriend them. Why would you want to befriend the humans? This seemed to make to make him sad. He dropped his gaze. I saw a boy in the distant forest. He was dressed in gray. He looked and had eyes like a wolf, he added. I just mastered my magic and was running around excitedly on my hind legs. Running in the grass was fun, but sadly, due to the difference in height, a fox couldn't see or smell the same things that a human can. I'm sure you can guess what happened next, teacher. Suddenly, I realized the horrible truth. I was lost. There was pain in his voice as he relayed the events of that day. In the end, he had wandered into some faraway wood and encountered vicious monsters. Just when he thought he was done for, a gray lupin boy, the gray lupin boy suddenly leaped out of the forest and chased away the monsters. Without a word, he turned around and vanished into the woods. If I could transform into a human and speak their language, I can track him down and make friends with him, he said gleefully. I could not help but ask when I heard his reply. Am I not your friend? The little one answered sincerely in common tongue. Mommy told me that it's different because you're my teacher, but I'd only hurt you if I tell you that. He tilted his head in befuddlement. His fluffy tail patted the surrounding dandelions as he pondered over the difficult issues. I know, he bursted out. If I know something that you don't, that would make me your teacher. If we're both teachers, that would make us equals. Then we can be friends. Still unfamiliar with the common tongue, he did his best to get the sentence out quickly. Teacher, please allow me to teach you some magic that only I know. Volume 7. Teacher, please allow me to teach you some magic that only I know. Still unfamiliar with the common tongue, he did his best to get the sentence out quickly, eager to befriend me. He picked a little dandelion. Dandelion, dandelion, ride the wind to a faraway land, the little fox chanted. He blew the dandelion flower and sent the seeds flying, and then he spoke in a more serious tone. May my teacher's wishes ride the wind and reach the animal archon. The wind blew past us and swept away the dandelion seeds. See, the animal archon has just answered my wish, he exclaimed merrily. What wish did you make? To become friends with my teacher. He lowered his head abruptly. It must have been tiring to teach him to speak your language. Our mouths are structured differently from yours, so I must thank you for your effort. We had not noticed the mother fox approach. Her eyes were like bottomless lakes, and the little fox quietly hid himself among the dandelions to escape her gaze. When he has mastered human language, I thought to myself. When he has mastered human language, she spoke softly. Volume 8. When he has mastered human language. Thus, she softly said. I looked at her face, mesmerized. I couldn't hear what she said after that. The mischievous night breeze was laden with dandelion seeds, which muffled her words. Or perhaps it was in her native tongue. The language of dandelions? She began to laugh as she perceived my clumsy, gauche appearance. Gosh? Geesh? Gosh, I don't know. Oh, no, I have to look it up. Gauche. Right. She began to laugh as she perceived my clumsy, gauche appearance. She had the most beautiful laugh. The curved pupils in her eyes glistened like two crescent moons shining on ripples in the lake. Now tell me then, why is it you wish to learn fox magic? I want to learn to transform just like foxes do. That way I can turn into a bird and fly to the highest heights and behold places that were once too far for my eyes to see. That was my reply. Ah, yes. No longer will I need to lie in wait among the bushes while hunting. Instead, I will be able to soar high above like a falcon. Thus I kept thinking to myself, as I was thought to my as I was thought to myself, the dandelion seed in my hand began to float up towards the moonlight, almost as if it had heard my thoughts. I see. She lowered her head slightly, and her long black hair flowed down her neck like a waterfall glistening in the moonlight. Her pale white skin shone brightly, seemingly reflecting the wisps of clouds in the night sky above. I couldn't take my eyes off her. After a moment, I quickly turned my gaze away as I started blushing again. Foxes are free animals. They would never cover their beauty because of shame like humans do. Although, this certainly wasn't the first time I beheld her. Every time the moonlight shone upon her long hair, I couldn't help but blush and look away. She turned her head in thought for a moment and let out a gentle sigh. She seemed rather displeased. We sat amidst the dandelion sea, not saying a word. A long time passed, long enough that I started thinking she might be angry with me. We foxes are grateful beings. I would teach you the magic of transformation, and so fulfill your wish, the fox said, turning her face towards me. Her lake blue eyes shone in the moonlight, and it made me feel at peace. Thank goodness she wasn't mad. For some reason I could not clearly name, I quietly heaved a sigh of relief. Volume 9. Foxes are clever animals, clever and cunning. The little fox learned very quickly, and could sometimes even ask questions that would stump me. For human speech is complicated and intricate. I'd fucking say. Nothing like the innocence of animal speech. Sometimes language is like a yarn ball caught in the paws of a cat. It catches here and there again it catches like a student's tongue, sometimes even tripping a teacher up. Foxes are clever animals, and Jesus. It's because I'm standing up, so the tracking's not doing very good. The tracking's not doing very good because I'm standing up and I'm a little bit further away from the camera. I can get closer. Does that help? Does this help? And also I'm looking down at the screen, so that's probably why as well. I lost where I was. I found it. I found it. I found it. But foxes are clever animals, and very quickly they learn many intricacies of human speech that were handed down over the generations, becoming able to describe the way dandelions float away, or how the moonlight shines over the lake in a rudimentary manner. Distraction successful. Oh no, how could you, Palnya? How could you? No. Ugh. Every time the little fox discovered a new term, every time he tried using unfamiliar words to explore a familiar world, to bestow meaning upon the wind, dandelions, and the earth, she would be beside him, smiling, watching us. The little fox learned quickly, but I did not take much joy from that. When I had run out of things to teach, would she still keep me here in this dandelion sea? When the time came, would I still be able to behold those beautiful eyes under the moonlight? Would she still lead me into the depths of the dandelion sea, smiling slyly as we frolicked and breathed in the bitter fragrance that came from both the north and the south winds? As I thought about such things, I became lost in sullen memory. Yes, that's right. On that night that I could no longer remember clearly, when I was about to part with the girl I loved, this same moon had hung in the sky as well. Thank you for everything till now. Before I knew it, the fox had walked in front of me. She bowed her head. She bowed, and her hair spilled over her shoulders, flowing like water in the glimmering moonlight. Once he has learned human speech, he would be able to make more new friends. I am truly thankful to you and all you have done. He has also cheered up significantly since beginning to learn the human language. She gazed at me, her deep, unfathomable eyes shining like jewels. Still, once you have finished teaching us the human language, where will you go then? Enraptured by those shining eyes, I forgot to reply. Was this fox magic too? Seeing my wooden expression, the fox laughed and sighed. Then she turned and began walking in the direction of the moon, leading me further into the center of the moonlit dandelion sea. Seeing this, the little fox swished its tail from side to side, burrowing into the dandelion's fields. Volume 10. The little fox kept waving back to us as he walked, his figure growing smaller and smaller until it became a tiny white spot, which blended into the dandelion sea and slowly faded away. After he had gone, the mother fox turned and walked over to me. The closer she drew, the greater in stature she became. By the time she stood before me, she had transformed into a woman. She was a tall and slender woman with a swan-like neck and pearly skin. Her eyes sparkled like gemstone fragments in the pool of water. In the darkness, they seemed to shine like rays of sunlight on water after filtering through the treetops. What a beauty! She looked a lot like the girl I fell in love with a long time ago, though I barely remember her name. Those eyes tell me she must be her, I thought to myself. For all the magic and transformation I had witnessed, still nothing amazed me quite as much as the gemstone-like lakes in her eyes. For a while we stood silently in the boundless dandelion sea. At last I could no longer contain myself and opened my mouth. Is this the magic you wanted to teach me? The magic of transformation? It is. I am most grateful to you for all your help over this long period. Hi, Yang. Hi, hi, hi. Thanks for the hydrate. She bowed to me, her long, silky black hair flowing down her shoulders like streams. Although saying farewell to the little fox left emptiness in my heart, I soon became exhilarated at the thought of transformation magic that I was about to learn. Could I transform into a flying bird once I mastered the magic? How high would I be able to fly? Maybe I could transform into a fish and finally have the chance to go to the Musk Reef. I could even use magic to hunt. I couldn't contain my excitement. No more meatless carrot stew for me. Then I shall ask you to stand still. She walked circles around me, her stature growing to every pass with every pass. Not no, not just her. The dandelions were also growing in size. They had only been they had only been at my ankles when she started, but now stretched over my waist, growing as if turning into towering trees. It was only when I started feeling strange what, that I realized that the fox had become a giant. Volume 11. I started to feel strange, and then I noticed I had turned into a dandelion. Even if I wanted to protest, the dandelion had no mouth nor tongue for me to make a sound. All I could do was watch helplessly as the giant gently picked the plant from the ground and held it between her thumb and index finger. Dandelion, dandelion, ride the wind to a faraway land, the fox chanted. And then, with a puff, the dandelion seeds began to dance in the air. I was caught in a storm and whisked away to a distant sky. The swirling made my head dizzy. Those eyes that glistened like gemstones in the lake had left me, along with my consciousness and the promise she had made. Oh, Animal Archon, I beg you to turn us to humans, for only then can we be safe from their hunting bows and knives. When I awoke, I found myself in the woods behind my village. The woods were full of lush trees, and at the center of the woods was a small lake. The lake was like the stained glass windows of the Mondstadt Cathedral, crystal clear and shimmering in the sunlight. The sun shone through the treetops and glistened on the water's surface like fragments of gemstone. It was really something. The weather was cool that day. I was hunting in the forest when I arrived at the lake's edge. The shimmering water somehow reminded me of a girl I loved a long time ago. I couldn't remember much about her, but felt that her eyes must have looked like the lake, glittering as if harboring fragments of gemstone within. I must have lost myself in thought that day, drifting off into sleep as I watched the sparkling lake. And that is the end of The Fox and the Dandelion Sea. That was actually really interesting. There were times where he repeated himself, and I assume it's because his memory was kind of faded. Or it was like if you didn't read the volume for a long time, it was just like to jog your memory. But that's interesting. So this particular hunter has already gone through this cycle more than once. Because he said that at the sequence that I read just now, the when I awoke, I found myself in that sequence. That he said that at the beginning too. Almost the same anyways. He said that basically at the beginning of the story. I think this was a really good story. Very paradoxical story, but very good. God, my eyes. Hang on. I'm gonna sit back down now. I'm gonna sit back down now. I'm standing up this whole time. Hang on. Oh. Okay. Hi. Hi. Okay, let me just recalibrate. Alright, okay. So, that was all the books that I have at the moment. When we get more books, I will, when I collect more of the books, I will continue to read from this after we finish our physical books, of course. We don't want to stop midway of a story. So, next time we do a reading session, I will be reading from a physical book that I have on my bookshelf. So, sort of to, I guess, introduce you guys to more stories and I guess my taste in stories. But I will also be doing it in this format where I am, you know, just reading to you guys and some nice silence, so to speak. A nice relaxing stream, unlike when I'm gaming and I'm like in a panic and stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is the first time in a while that I actually sat down and read for more than just a few minutes. So I hope you did enjoy it, because surprisingly enough, despite my tiredness at the beginning, having stood up helped a lot. Despite the tiredness at the beginning, I did quite enjoy reading the books to you guys, and I hope you guys had a nice relaxing time with me as I read you some wonderful stories from Mondstadt and Liyue. So let me just go grab my book from the shelf so that I can tell you what kind of story you'll be expecting. I'll read the blurb out for you guys, alright? I'll be right back. I'm just gonna go get that book from my shelf. You scared the shit out of me! You scared the heck out of me. So? I have so many emails, of course I have to put... Yeah. What the... Can you please let me sign in? Hang on, guys. It's me. Me. Good night. I get up to go get my book and my father is standing right in front of me. God, Jesus, that's horrifying. Oh my god, I didn't even hear him open the door. Oh my god. Anyways, give me a second, I'll go get the book and read you guys the blurb. Okay. Alright. I got my book. So, we're not gonna start reading this now, obviously. So, I will read you guys the blurb of the book. and probably like the first page. So this is a book called The Various, and it's by Steve Ogard, book 1 in the Touchstone trilogy. But I don't have the entire trilogy, so you guys will be stuck with just book 1. So here is the blurb. The reason why I only have book 1 is because this is actually a really old book that we bought when we used to live back in my home country, Malaysia. And I don't know if I can find like the other books here. So yeah. So the blurb says, "It is a fact, an absolute fact, that there are creatures on the surface of this earth that have never been observed by man. We may think we have seen all that there is to be seen on this tiny planet of ours. We most certainly have not. There have been stories of little people, piskies. It's not spelled the same way. Peskies. I did it again. Piskies, fairies, jack-o'-lanterns, call them what you will, ever since the world began. Quiet rumors and whispers, hearsay, are all they amount to, until a 12-year-old child discovers the truth, hidden away among the briars and brambles high above the Somerset wetlands. The truth is strange and wild, and sometimes deadly. You have been granted 3 wishes, and the various is but the first." That's the blurb. I hope you guys are as invested as me. I did read like probably the first couple pages of this book, and then stopped reading it because I just didn't have time to read. So by the next stream, we will start. Hang on, I'm just trying to put this book on my desk. Hello? Can I put a book on my desk? So by tomorrow, what the fuck? No! Oh, brain no work, brain no function. Okay, by the next time we do our reading session, there we fucking go. Next time we do our reading session, we will be reading The Various. And I hope you guys will enjoy it as much as I will. So thank you. I know this one is like 10 minutes shorter than usual, but I do have to find something to eat because I skipped dinner again. So thank you, Little Thieves, so much for coming to today's stream. I hope you enjoyed today's story time. We're gonna have for somebody raid now, and while I'm doing that, if you're not already in the Discord server, do join the Discord server. I know it's a little inactive, so to speak, but if you guys talk in there, I'm probably gonna talk in there too. Follow me on all my socials if you're so inclined. There is your raid message, everybody. And for those of you who don't have the emote, there is your raid message. I do Discord streams on occasion just to do my art whenever I'm, free. But I am doing this thing where I draw for an hour and then I take a break, watch an episode of something, and then come back to it and draw for another hour. So if you guys would like to come by and, watch some shows with me while and me draw, then yeah, you're more than welcome to. Okay, let's see who is on today. If that's live, we could go rate that and you guys can hear more stories. Otherwise, we're just gonna find someone random to raid. Preferably someone I haven't raided before. Thank you for coming by, Hitsu. That's the wrong file! Gosh, my eyes! Okay. So, I don't see Dad online, so let's go find somebody I think I haven't raided before. I think I've raided Lee. You raided Lee, right? Yeah, I have raided Lee. Ah, his new model is still so pretty. Ah, goddamn. Okay, let's see. We've rated them before. Okay, let's see. We'll raid Sabri. I'm not sure how to pronounce their name. We're gonna raid them. They're playing Phoenix right now. They're playing Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations. So we'll go see them. So, okay. So thank you all once again so much for coming, and I'll see you, my little. Oh shit! I accidentally fucking stopped the raid. Stop it! Ah! I didn't use unraid. I just clicked off screen. Oh my god. Anyways, thank you. Thank you all once again so much for coming. And I'll see you, my little thieves, in the next one. Bye!